There is a sound a car makes right before it loses control. Somewhere on Japan's mountain roads, it echoes off every guardrail and blind corner. Most drivers spend their entire lives trying never to hear it. One man spent his entire life chasing it, and then he taught the whole world to fall in love with it. His name is Keiichi Tsuchiya. Japanese racing driver, mountain road legend, and the man they call the Drift King. The definite article. Because before him, drifting was a mistake, the thing that happened a half-second before you crashed. After him, it was an art form, a global motorsport, and one of the most copied driving styles on planet Earth. One man took the most dangerous moment in motorsport and turned it into his signature and changed driving forever. Every modern drift champion is standing on ground. Tsuchiya cleared. Take Vaughn Gittin Jr., who in December of 2005 became the first American ever to win a D1 Grand Prix event, beating Japan's best in a Ford Mustang at Irwindale. And the sole judge scoring him that day was Keiichi Tsuchiya himself. Daigo Saito remains the only driver to win both of drifting's majors, taking D1 GP titles in 2008 and 2016, along with the 2012 Formula Drift Championship, all in series that exist because of what Tsuchiya and Inada built at Ebisu. Chris Forsberg, the three-time Formula Drift champion, whose Nissan 370Z became one of the sport's most recognizable cars, is another pillar of that American scene, and Tanner Faust, whose career crossed from Formula Drift titles into rallycross and rally racing, showed just how transferable the car control fundamentals Tsuchiya preached really were. The pattern continues everywhere you look. James Dean has stacked up 5 Formula Drift championships, the latest in 2025 driving a Ford Mustang, while Frederick Asbu owns 3 titles and more event wins than anyone in the sport's history. Matt Field, a Formula Drift mainstay since 2010, fought all the way to runner-up in the 2025 championship in his Corvette. Connor Shanahan has claimed the Drift Masters crown twice over in Europe, and Mad Mike Whittet carried his screaming rotary Mazdas from New Zealand all the way to Japan, competing in D1 GP and winning a Formula Drift Japan title on the Drift King's home soil. None of these careers exist without a kid from Nagano deciding the sideways line was worth the risk. To understand why Tsuchiya is a legend, you first have to understand what he was actually doing, because it sounds simple, and it absolutely is not. When a car turns normally, all 4 tires grip the road and point you through the corner. Drifting is the opposite. You deliberately break the rear tires loose so the back of the car slides outward. The car is now pointed one way and traveling another. You are, by every definition, out of control. Except Tsuchiya wasn't. That's the whole trick. He could hold a car sideways, engine screaming, smoke pouring, the rear end hung out at an angle that should end in a guardrail, and steer it through an entire corner with total precision. He wasn't fighting the slide, he was conducting it. And that distinction, control inside chaos, is the entire reason we're talking about him today. A great driver masters a car. Tsuchiya mastered the act of driving itself. And that meant he could climb into almost anything on wheels and immediately find its limit. Tsuchiya didn't have one trick. He had a toolkit. There was the feint, flicking the car the wrong way first, then snapping it back so the weight transfer throws the rear loose. There was the clutch kick, stabbing the clutch to shock the drivetrain and break the tires free on command. There was the braking drift, using the brakes to shift weight forward and unload the rear, and the power over, simply bearing the throttle to overwhelm the rear tires with raw force. But here's what made him the king. He didn't think in techniques, he blended them. Mid-corner, he could transition seamlessly from one to the next, chaining slides through an entire sequence of bends, corner to corner to corner, as one continuous flowing motion. And he did it with finesse, not violence. His drifts were smooth, minimal steering input, perfect throttle modulation, the car balanced on a knife's edge but never thrashing. That smoothness is his fingerprint, and you can still see drivers chasing it 3 generations later. Tsuchiya sharpened all of this in the most unforgiving classroom imaginable. The toge, Japan's tight, twisting mountain passes. Narrow roads, blind corners, no runoff, no room for error. A mistake there doesn't cost you a lap. It costs you everything. That environment forged a driver with zero margin for sloppiness. He wasn't starting from nothing either. Japanese racing driver Kunimitsu Takahashi had pioneered aggressive cornering techniques in the 1960s and early 70s, and those ideas filtered down through the mountain road culture Tsuchiya grew up in. Tsuchiya's professional debut came in 1977 in the Fuji Freshman Series at Fuji Speedway, a grassroots entry-level championship. Right away, he started doing something nobody else would do, which meant drifting in races that had nothing to do with drifting. Years later, his own words explained why. He put it this way, quote, "I drift to overtake, not because it is the quickest way around a corner, but the most exciting way," end quote. On certain corners, his sliding style was genuinely faster because he could get back on the power earlier with the car already rotated toward the exit. He was using the mistake as a competitive advantage. And that idea is the seed of his entire legend. 6 wins came in the 1984 Fuji Freshman Series, all in a Toyota AE86. In the following year, 1985, he claimed first in Class 3 of the All-Japan Touring Car Championship in that same model. In 1987, everything changed because of a single video. A production company called Plus-B filmed Tsuchiya doing what he did best, drifting a mountain pass at full commitment in his beloved Toyota AE86 Corolla. That footage, known simply as the Plus-B video, became a lightning bolt. Fans had never seen anything like it. A man dancing a tiny, humble economy car sideways through the mountains with total mastery. It made him a folk hero overnight. But it came with a price. The footage showed driving on public roads, and the authorities did not see art. They saw a violation. Tsuchiya's competition license was suspended. One of the most gifted drivers of his generation was sidelined, all because the very thing that made him special looked, to the people in charge, like recklessness. He could have faded out, a cult hero with a cautionary tale ending. Instead, he answered it the only way he knew how. He kept winning. Through the early 90s, Tsuchiya ran Group A, touring cars in a Skyline GTR with Team Taisan, alongside his boyhood hero Kunimitsu Takahashi. The big one arrived in 1994, his first start at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in a Honda NSX, finishing 18th overall. A year later, he returned with Team Kunimitsu, Takahashi's team, sharing the NSX with Takahashi and Akira Ida, and together they won the GT2 class and finished 8th overall. The street racer who'd lost his license 8 years earlier now stood as a class winner at the most prestigious endurance race on the planet, right beside the man who inspired his entire technique. The comebacks kept coming. 7 Le Mans starts in total between 1994 and 2000. There were the NSX years, a McLaren F1 GTR with the Lark team in 1997 that ended in a DNF and a move to Toyota Team Europe in the Toyota GT1, which brought 9th place in 1998. That GT1, by the way, became one of the most celebrated racing cars in Gran Turismo history, introducing an entire generation of console gamers to the machine Tsuchiya actually drove at Le Mans. Everything peaked in 1999. Sharing the GT1 with Ukyo Katayama and Toshio Suzuki, Tsuchiya watched the final hour unfold as Katayama built pace chasing down the leading BMW V12 LMR, and that's when a backmarker forced the GT1 into the grass and blew a tire. The team survived the moment, set the fastest lap of the race, and crossed the line 2nd overall after 364 laps. First in the LMGTP class. One backmarker is all that stood between Tsuchiya and winning Le Mans outright. Le Mans is won by precision, consistency, and machine sympathy over 24 brutal hours. It is the opposite of a flashy mountain run, and he conquered it. Experimenting never stopped either. NASCAR drew him in with exhibition races at Suzuka, a Winston West race at California Speedway in 1998, and the 1999 Coca-Cola 500 at Twin Ring Motegi, which stands as NASCAR's first points-paying race held outside North America. Straight line specialists, road racers, oval racers, Tsuchiya wanted to test himself against all of them. The final Le Mans start came in 2000 aboard a Panos, finishing 8th overall, and in 2001 he claimed runner-up in the All Japan GT Championships Top GT 500 class, driving an RTA Honda NSX before retiring from full-time racing in 2003. A street-born drifter who was also a Le Mans winner. Nobody gets to be both. He was both. October of 2000 changed everything. At Ebisu circuit in Fukushima, the first round of a new professional series ran under the name All Japan Professional Drift Championship, drawing roughly 40 entrants and a crowd of about 3,000 people. That event counted as round 1 of the 2001 season, and the series soon took a new name, the D1 Grand Prix, the world's first professional drift series, co-founded by Tsuchiya and Inada with Tsuchiya as judge. From 40 cars and 3,000 fans at Ebisu circuit, drifting grew into a global motorsport, and Tsuchiya's fingerprints traveled everywhere the sport went. The D1 Grand Prix crowned its first champion in 2001, and his story is proof that Tsuchiya's ladder, from the streets to a professional podium, actually worked. Nobuteru Taniguchi's rise reads like a copy of the Drift King's own, because he came out of high school with no karting background and no racing money, just a souped-up Toyota Sprinter Trueno, the same AE86 platform Tsuchiya made famous, and the same car that inspired the protagonist's weapon of choice in Initial D. The anime Tsuchiya himself served as driving consultant for, and he sharpened his craft drifting the mountain passes in the dark of night with his street team After Fire. The path Tsuchiya paved is the path Taniguchi climbed, working his way through amateur contests including Ikaten, the very competition Tsuchiya co-created with Daijiro Inada back in 1989, before tuning giant HKS signed him as a test driver and put him in the S15 Silvia that became one of the most recognized drift cars of all time. The most direct line runs to Formula Drift, the American professional series founded in 2004 by Jim Leo and Ryan Sage, which was built explicitly on the D1 Grand Prix model and brought Tsuchiya's format to North American audiences. In 2003, the same year he stepped away from racing, he released the Drift Bible, a complete instructional guide breaking drifting down into 6 core methods. The e-brake, shift lock, power over, braking drift, feint, and liftoff. Anyone who has ever watched a tutorial on car control technique has seen the descendants of that video. Hollywood came calling too. On the 2006 film The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, Tsuchiya worked as stunt coordinator and stuntman, and anyone who has seen the movie has seen him because he plays the fisherman watching the drifting and commenting on the driver's skill. The actual Drift King spent that film hiding in plain sight, inside the Hollywood movie about his own world. Restlessness defined the years that followed. January 2011 brought his departure from D1, the series he co-founded, and in its place he started an amateur series called Drift Muscle, then partnered with the King of Europe series in 2014 to create the King of Asia Pro Series. Everywhere Japanese car culture went, there he stood, usually in his trademark jade green. Tsuchiya is in his late 60s, and the sport still refuses to let him retire, mostly because he refuses to let himself. January 2025 brought the latest chapter when Hyundai unveiled the Ioniq 5 NDK edition at the Tokyo Auto Salon, with DK standing for Drift King. This drift-focused version of their 641 horsepower electric performance car came co-developed with and endorsed by Tsuchiya, lowered 15 millimeters on H&R springs, fitted with 6-piston duralumin brake calipers and pads carrying 54% more surface area, and sold only in Japan and South Korea. Consider that arc for a second. The man who learned car control in a 180 horsepower Corolla on an illegal mountain road, the same man who put Formula Drift on the map through D1 Grand Prix, now tunes 641 horsepower electric cars for a global manufacturer with his initials on the badge. The criteria competitors are scored on to this day: line, angle, speed, and style, flow directly from how he understood drifting. Every drift competition in the world, from D1 GP to Formula Drift in America, is, in a sense, still judged by Keiichi Tsuchiya's eyes. He didn't just dominate a game, he invented the scoreboard. What is your favorite game-changing move in sports history? Let us know in the comments, like this video, and subscribe so you never miss our next breakdown.